Okay, so this is actually day one of this new section that Scott put together inside this site. And I just first want to acknowledge Scott and not particularly like mention the name of the trainer or whatever, but just wanted to just quickly acknowledge Scott. Just if you're going to be watching this, Scott, or see us at some point, I just want to say thank you for really knowing, and creating exactly at the right time, a program or a module, exactly knowing what's going to serve me and where I'm at and creating that. So this is actually for the last like few days I've been just in story mode, writing out my story, but writing out right for the purpose of, what I want to do. And so I'm all in story mode and branding. So this is a perfect section to be going through right now. So thank you. So what I really got was profound, and it really had me just think of opportunities I lost because maybe I didn't share my story right, or I didn't share it with the right person, or I just shared it mindlessly. And it's a learning experience, I get it. But first thing, I learned, well, one of the things I got from this module, it was great because as good as her story may be, as good as my story may be, and I know I have a really good, catchy, moving story, but as good as it is, and yes, I've come to the other side, in multiple levels, and still, going through this process and this journey. Um, but what I really got is, as good as my story may be, it could turn some people off. And that was really valuable for me to hear because recently I was just thinking, about this potential client I had. And, and she didn't continue. I lost her. And I was just thinking, like, this is most of the problem. This is why I lost her. Like, she couldn't relate to this story, and she did give me feedback saying, this is not for her, whatever, like, right, without going too much details. And I was just thinking, like, what I learned this morning, you want to really relate to people, like, have them, have the heartstrings struck, especially in the beginning, really catch their attention. And the story I share must be relatable to their situation or to them. Otherwise, they won't be sold or they won't get it. Yeah, we all have our own stories, but they could look at it like, well, that's great for you, but how does that relate to me? How are you going to help me with this, this, and this? So just really being mindful of that, of, yeah, we could share our story, but what to share at what point in time and how to reframe it, because it's really not about me or not about us. Yes, it may be our stories, but it's not about our process or about us. It's about how can this serve that person or help that person or sell that person into, yes, I want that, how can you do that for me? And it's all in like story branding and how it's told, how it's framed, when it's told, who it's told to. But the key, so the thing I got, like, first, like, um all these sections are important. So the number one should be the first step, right, which is like the early stages of, of the path, the early stages of where they're going through. Like, they're in the early stages, they just really started out, and sharing a story that they could relate to in the early stages. The second one is the mid, I think it's the mid January, which is they're further along, they've achieved some maybe bigger milestones, and they're further along the process. And the third one is the finisher, where they've gone through that path, what I call the success path, and they are at the other end, right? So the whole, but the key, all these sections are important to have to keep in mind when sharing a story or in story branding. But the key element is it must be relatable. It must relate to them, and also, and I made just some notes here. And also, you want to uncover the emotions that they experience. So when sharing this story, it's like, really capturing the emotions, like going deep into that so they can catch it, they can feel it, they can experience it, say, yeah, that was me, or that's me right now, right? That really grabs their attention, the internal struggles, and going in depth into that. And and through this story, the whole point is, like when I said, it's not about me or my process. While sharing a story, a particular story, it's about that person going through the experience of that story and getting a transformation for themselves through listening to my story. So it's not just about sharing a story, like we can all share stories, but in this particular context, if we want to really make an impact or like sell through stories, which is really powerful, then we must know first most how to share the story, who to share it to, at what point in time to share it to, and how to frame it so it's relatable to them. Like when they're listening to that story, they're having their own transformation or epiphany. So that's what I got out of this module, the first one of story branding, and something really to implement and keep in mind as I'm going through this process myself.